I don't know if you recognize yourselves in this at all, but this is me way, way too often. I have a very strong tendency to focus so hard on one problem that I completely lose sight of all the things that it's connected to. And I work as a consultant, and by overlooking all the things that it's connecting to, that is sometimes the organization, the marketplace, or all the other infrastructural connections that deals with this particular problem that a client has. And if I fail to see these problems properly, I might up fixing the wrong thing. And at the same time, my clients are constantly asking for more effective, more efficient processes, but at the same time, I still need as much insight as possible to get started. So how do we solve for this? Here's just one suggestion. All right, so the context is I'm sitting down with a new client. We don't know each other very well, and we're just beginning a new collaboration, a new project. There are two of us from Netlife, one facilitating the conversation, one taking notes. And the notes are taken on the full screen in front of everyone to see. The client has 3 or 4 people there to join in on the conversation, and we've set about 2 hours aside for this exercise. And we start off just by encouraging them to be precise and critical, and also making sure that all the data that they share is confidential. All right, and then we walk through a bunch of different themes, which you can see are all supported by questions and examples to guide the interviewer through the task. The style is super informal, very conversational, and we just want the client to speak as freely and honestly as possible. Then we quickly will identify areas that need further investigation so that we can jump up and down in the spreadsheet, and allows for us to dig deeper and jump around. And these categories and themes, in essence, they base what we see as the baseline insight that we really need to have in order to have a strategic conversation with a client. And as you see here, I'm talking to a hypothetical telco company in Norway. So this is all about understanding how things work together. Because as we've been talking a lot about today, it's all about these interconnections and interdependencies that keeps giving us trouble when we try to realize our concepts and ideas. And again, our tendency is to isolate one problem to one department, for example. And that is hugely problematic. For example, when we do a new website, that's mostly what we do for now, that will impact the way that the brand is perceived, the way that the content people work. It will create a new data point for analysis and to be worked into the value proposition, and it also alters the customer journey. And basically, this takes us from a conversation about design and CRM and all those things into a conversation about routines, about competence, about management and culture. And that's quite far away from just another new website. So it's basically full-on domino effect, and we need to be very mindful of that. And here you see the components that are very directly drawn from the enterprise design stack. And during the 2 hours that we have with this client, we might learn about things that would otherwise take us years to discover about this organization. As Johannes, you were talking about it as well, who has the real decision-making power? And what other parallel projects are going on that might mess it up for us 2 weeks before launch? And do they have a very strong culture for sharing? Or is it every man for himself? So by looking into this, we are able to really customize the way that we carry out a project with this particular client. And we might also discover new business areas that were not a part of the initial invitation to the table. For example, we might discover that they are looking into develop new digital services, but they don't know how. Or that they need help mapping out their customer journey. So this is useful as an exercise. Mostly we use it in the beginning of a new collaboration because it's useful both for the team, internal team at Netlife who works with them, but also in anchoring the observations that we're doing with the client. However, it is most valuable if it is used consistently over time. We will use this tool now as a tool for documenting business goals and identifying activities to reach them. And our aim is to replace the static, linear PDF that is produced every 3 years by top management and put in a drawer to die, and rather work more integrated, more consistently, and more operationally with strategy. And this is a super, super simple but dynamic interface that can now be shared with and understood by the whole organization. So we needed something that was easy to use, but that would help us avoid misunderstandings and roadblocks. We needed something that supported the fact that the strategic and operational realm are now converging, and that discredited the linear and strategic design process of classic strategy. And honestly, they're very, very unlikely to help you make the right decisions today. And we also wanted something that elevates our conversations from the marketing department and up to top management level, and also that helped us kind of move away from the project-on-project model, because we want to be in long-term relations with our clients. So the design criteria needed to reflect this new business dynamics, and it needed to be where insight, ideas, and activities all now live in the same frame, and where strategic input is both useful and extremely simple, both for Netlife, my colleagues, and for the client. And this would ultimately allow us to see the real connections, see how problems really are connected and how they impact each other. And it would take us away from working superficially and working more deeply and over time with strategic issues with our clients. So for now, it lives in a very dull Excel sheet. It's dynamic and it's simple in its form. It's super light and it's easy to adapt. I would love to share it with all of you and get insight as to how we can improve this further. I'm sure you have tons of good ideas about how to make it even better. I've done 3 usability tests with clients for now and gotten a lot of feedback that has forced me to do huge changes. So I've been showing my stuff, listening in, and getting really, really valuable feedback. And I want to keep doing that. I want to keep doing that with the network here, and I'd be very happy to have your feedback. My dream is to take this into a much more dynamic interface for data harvesting, and so that it's easy to maintain over time. But most importantly, it needs to be so simple. All right, thank you very much.
Hey guys, my name is Kuno. Having worked with Milan for about 4 or 5 years, I've moved from the dark side of technology, C++ programming and all that stuff, into a brighter future with design. And Qualiware has moved with me, fortunately. I know why, actually, that Microsoft discontinued the Paint platform. Basically, and I know that from experience, when you do something in Paint, you can never find it again. So for 4 years, we've not been able to find the sketches that Milan did for us. So he charges for new sketches every time and still using Paint. So actually I called up Microsoft and said, you guys need to discontinue that platform. Anyway, what is it that Qualiware do? Coming from the dark side, we do enterprise architecture tools, expensive tools that saves the lives of big companies. And why do they do that? Well, these big companies, they, as you all know, and we've talked about that today, they need to react to the market dynamics. Or maybe even invent something that will change the market dynamics, who knows. And in order to do that, they need to focus on 3 things at least. We call them the 3 C's. Coherency, the first one, is about establishing a holistic picture of the business. Little islands of knowledge in Paint, Visio, and Excel, and Word and PowerPoint does not provide for decision making in mid-sized to large-sized organizations. You need this knowledge to be in a coherent model such that you can point to an object and say, what happens if I change this part of my business? And when you have that plan to change your business, you've defined your roadmaps and everything is okay from an architectural point of view, your job is not done. You actually need to implement the change. And coming from a Nordic country, the management philosophy that we call the consensus model is sort of part of our heritage. And it talks about integrating the work that you do into the entire business. So engaging your colleagues, your employees, having decentralized management of and decision making and management of the knowledge such that everybody is involved. We fought with Gartner for 5 years about collaboration, if that was part of enterprise architecture. And at the end we said just, it doesn't matter what they say, we believe it's part of enterprise architecture. And this is the product that we provide that has the biggest growth in users. So it's like an exponential growth. When you see a model, right now every employee in every business will be able to click that little symbol and get more information. They do that every day. My youngest son can do that. He's 27 now, so you would expect that. But still, it has become a normal way of knowledge sharing. So the collaboration is crucial to change management. And the last part is consistency. Consistency across the enterprise. If we share knowledge in a specific way at headquarters, we need to do that in the business units the same way. But also consistency over time. What we do today, we learn from, and then we improve, and then we improve, and then we improve. It's not a project. There's no time boxing in change management. It's an ongoing initiative. And what we've done now with Milan is to try to put enterprise design into that picture, and it actually makes a logical extension to enterprise architecture. In reality, as we heard before, not a lot of people in the organization is interested in process models or application landscapes. They have a real job to do. But those models, that knowledge, can help them doing that work in a better way. And that is why we're here. And enterprise design is a new way of thinking. It extends enterprise architecture or complete the sort of the total picture of enterprise architecture by including new type of topics or concepts such as identity, touch points, stuff like that. But also looking at the outside that did not used to be in the view of an enterprise architect. If you're an enterprise architect, classic style, you have an enterprise, you decompose it to small models, and when you've decomposed everything, you think you know it all. But there's a world around us, and enterprise design is responsible for that. What is a typical scenario when you use a tool like this? There is a database. I know it's a shock for you guys. I mean, the most structured approach to sharing something is to put it into Dropbox or Slick or Slack or whatever it's called. Now I know what it's called. And it's great. But there is a need to control access, to share the knowledge, to have the right version at your fingertips when you look for it. And this is what can be done in a repository-based tool. So somebody will define how do we model, when do we model, and then you can start modeling. And modeling is not something that we have control over. You can model any way you want. It can actually also be pictures, but it can be brown paper on the wall. It can be anything. It can also be a little bit more formal models, but enterprise design seems to not like that a lot. The next thing, however, is mandatory. We need to share this with an audience that we've defined. And if we're really sort of interested in keeping that continuous improvement, we will allow them some kind of feedback options so that we can continue to improve. Those of our clients who really implemented enterprise architecture in a successful way has implemented this cycle so that you continuously keep improving your documents. And by the way, not everything becomes a model. There are still tons of Word files in SharePoint and information in your databases and your systems, and you need to integrate that, obviously. So this is a typical scenario. We do the same way with enterprise design as with enterprise architecture. The benefit, well, this is from one of our clients. They have a lot of statistics, and this example, they say typically before they start using a real tool, it would take them 30 days from they hired a new guy in procurement until he made his first purchase order in SAP. Now it takes them 3 days. And why is that? Because there's only one place that he should go and look for what is the process like, links to every document he needs, a little video sequence showing how to enter a purchase order in SAP, and so on and so forth. So a lot less errors, a lot easier to change the workforce focus. This is actually implementing agility in a business. If you want to react rapidly to the market dynamics, a good place to start is to be able to move your workforce, together with them obviously, into a new direction. Another thing, it's much more popular to have a nice tool with control and where they can get everything in one place. It actually increased the number of hits in the web-based management system 5 times. It also increased the number of process improvement suggestions from 50 per year to 1,100. You may not need 1,100 improvement suggestions, but it certainly shows you that the organization is more active on sharing the knowledge that you have in the repository. Let me just show you just a little brief demo of how does this look. This is the collaboration platform, and it's my page. When I log in, it's controlled by Active Directory. What can I see? What can I do? This is my information, my subscriptions, my governance task, and my feeds that I need. So everything here is focusing on me, not the architecture, not the design, not the quality system, but what I need in my job here and now, because that's what is important. I can move into the design framework, and if I do that, I get the design framework that Milan and his team has designed. So if I want to work with touch points, I can see all the different touch points. Here's my patient journey. Here's a series of touch point, patient journey, touch point. Patient is feeling sick. Research, locate hospital, etc. There are some channels and some other symbols that really makes a simple way of expressing this customer journey. Now, what a tool can do for you is obviously showing the picture. What I can do is explain how it should be interpreted, but I have a lot of clients that even with this very easy to use diagram would be a little, oh my God, there's a lot of symbols in there. So what can we do to make that easier? Well, we can try to visualize it. We can try to sort of pull a layer of reality across that and just walk through that journey together with the end user. Just, any type of content can pop up here, video, YouTube clips or whatever. And basically what I get now online whenever you need it is exactly what I just did when I explained the diagram to you guys. So instead of just defining a model, creating a model, and then leave it up to the end user to understand it, it has now become the responsibility of the model owner to make sure that every different type of user looking at this model will understand it. The next thing that could be important would be to say, to realize these ideas. What is more important, the idea or the execution? There was an excellent question. Now, when you execute your idea, I have to say, and it may come as a shock to you, you need enterprise architecture for that. It's not just design. Let me see if I can actually click this button here. Wouldn't it be great if it worked? Yeah, here's it is. No, okay, well, let me come back to my front page, look at the design, click this one. Oh, good. Here's my hospital blueprint. A little bit more, but still, working around that customer journey from before. Down here I have some services and architectures where I may want to link actual architectural models into. So, for example, here I can link to a process model. So moving from my enterprise design models directly into my enterprise architectural models that may or may not be interesting, more sort of rigid type of models with responsibilities and somebody who signed off, I read this, and everything that is in the tool today. Another model that would be interesting maybe could be something like, here's a service, provide immediate feedback. What does that mean? Well, if you're an enterprise architect and you have this strategic roadmap, it's like having a GPS. You have a strategic roadmap. I want to go from here to there, and here's the route I am taking. If something happens out there, an accident or whatever, you need to change your road or your route. Now, what you can do with the business operating models is actually to get a situational awareness from your running systems. So just you'll be happy here. So if I click here, I want to see right now, how are we doing with our medical device KPIs? So there's a series of performance views that will go out into the organizational structures and into the systems and get your KPIs up. So complaints are in yellow, customer satisfaction is in green. However, customer satisfaction on the medical devices are still in yellow. So this is a sort of a point in time, how are we doing right now with this particular market or this particular product or this particular product in total. Basically, a question of getting your business model, your enterprise design and your business model all the way through to your execution. That was 15 minutes, I think. 14. Thank you.
Okay, so fantastic. Yeah, I'll just give you some background. I'm an architect and a designer, originally turned into a software entrepreneur. I also teach at a master's program on integrated design. And just to keep myself busy, I'm a hired evangelist for innovation management and business design. And something I call strategic creativity. Where exactly do we apply our creativity on a strategic perspective? I'm also part of the Google Experts Group. And what I'm mostly interested in is the innovation operation itself, as an operation, as a process of production. So, of course, we know how to deal. We know about the strategy and execution gaps, but there's also the imagination and realization gaps. And they, put together, they can turn into a big issue. So, looking at what already exists, we know the jobs to be done perspective framework by Clayton Christensen. And there's also a Getting Things Done by David Allen. But what happens between them? What happens between what we understand about what the customer wants or needs or desires, and then how we can prioritize task issues and operations? How do we actually understand what those things are? So when we imagine innovation, we basically think about like fancy labs and you know, like creative spots. But actually innovation is more like a warehouse, okay? There's a lot of ideas being thrown at the ramp and need to be organized, categorized, and placed in order, because there's trucks coming out in the afternoon to pick those ideas. And basically those warehouses are operated by not so special people, and who are not always interested in what they do. But again, you know, if your package gets lost along the way, nothing happens. So this is basically more like an innovation process. So just to set the stage, there are some terminologies, you know, I'll just skip them quickly. You can read them. So there's innovation, there's design, and there's creativity. And when we put enterprise design, it's basically combining all of these things, which is a guarantee recipe. And of course, the process, which goes all the way through the fuzzy front end, the messy middle, where you understand it's just so complicated, and the murky background, when you realize everything that you weren't told and you weren't aware of, and it's a promised recipe for a wicked problem. Okay, so wicked problems are something that we deal with on a continuous basis. They are surprising, just like this computer. They are, you know, unpredicted. You don't know them until you get to them. Okay, so designers are becoming really, really important, not because they can sit in a nicely organized manner, but because they are experienced in wicked problem solving. And the way that they're doing that, and this is, I think, the big, you know, thing to understand about designers, is that they use diagrams. So when a designer uses a diagram, it's basically a thinking tool that quickly represents what they're thinking, what they're dealing with, what's the problem that they're trying to solve. They can start sketching different types of solutions to these questions, and basically imagine, you know, explore ideas, make decisions, prioritize, validate, and communicate, and also guide execution, because we also do that, you know, to make like actual decisions, what materials we're using, how we're going to use them. And we do these diagrams in many, many forms. So we know there's early sketches, and we have those realizations, and then of course the diagram needs to be scalable as well. So this is something that as a designer, you learn for years how to use these diagrams. Okay, so the scheme, the design diagram, becomes a really, really important work tool. Okay, and I think this is a fantastic quote by Sanford Guenther that explains, you know, that it actually, you know, represents the reality in a way that reinforms the imaginative realities. So what a design diagram is composed of is actually, you know, it tells us about the form, it tells us about the formation, and it tells us about the information needed. Okay? All this information is packed into this really sketchy thing. And if it's not there, it's asking us, where is this information? So a good diagram should be simple, scalable, sustainable, and of course communicative, because we need those diagrams to communicate with our colleagues. So, of course, now when we think about the jobs to be done and the getting things done, what I realized over the years is there are a lot of things to be done along the way. Okay, so in order to connect those two dots, and then what are those things to be done? So the things to be done is actually an evolutionary business design framework which exposes wicked problems, okay, and it identifies specific operations that generate creative solutions, or it would explain why things fail. And the main idea behind this diagram thinking is thinking through these three endpoints: goals, accomplishments, and programs. And I'll focus on accomplishments soon, but I think through these three entities you can describe anything an enterprise wants to do, or has to do, or needs to do. So the diagram is very simple, actually. It's a hierarchical diagram. It has the goals. It asks, what are the accomplishments associated with these goals? And what are the programs, actually courses of operation needed to fulfill these accomplishments? And of course, each program might have additional accomplishments that are required and additional programs. Now, the good thing about it is that immediately, if we organize our thoughts and ideas in this way, we can start seeing what's missing, okay? And what do we don't know? So that's the first thing. And then, of course, we can start identifying where are the hotspots. Are there places which are wrong? Are there places which I need to add more accomplishments to my game plan? So I think that the main focus, and I've been trying this methodology in my students for a few years, and with projects I'm working in, and just small corrections, I work with startups, I work with NGOs, I work with government organizations, I work with large companies, all about helping innovation leaders come up with the right innovation program for their operations. But then I realized that accomplishment-based thinking, that's not so easy, okay? It's not that intuitive. I mean, what it is about is basically asking, how can I transform them? What needs to happen so this thing becomes this thing? All right? And there's so many ways of doing that, okay? So what needs to happen? We basically need to build some sort of morphological analysis or morphological matrices, because there's different types of activities, and each activity can have different types of occurrences. So what's the problem? Yeah, most people don't think in accomplishments. Most people think about, what are my motivations? At best, what are the actions I'm going to do? Okay? And what are the procedures? So the procedures are easy. We can explain procedures, we can explain actions, but we're thinking, if we have a problem, and I say, yes, I will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can describe my actions, not necessarily the accomplishments. And I've been seeing that, I've been researching that with my students for a few years, and it's really hard, even for them, for design students on a master's degree, to translate, their intentions into a set of accomplishments. So the frame was actually, we did that. The toolbox for the frameworks actually consists of 4 parts. So we have the map diagrams, which is basically the motivations, actions, and prerequisites. We have the gap diagrams, which is the goals, accomplishments, and procedures, programs. Then we have several tools, which are finders. It's based on a set of questions that we need to ask based on these diagrams that we're creating, very, very easily and very, very quickly. And then we have the solvers to actually direct us towards where the solution is. So moving from action-based thinking to accomplishment-based thinking, I think this what's the important thing is, very, very easily, I mean, on a small case, you can show that to someone and ask him, what's not right with this picture? What's wrong with it? Okay, what do you don't like about it? Those diagrams that designers do, they actually communicate with them continuously. It's just like, oh yeah, I did that, but I don't like how it looks like. I think the material should be different. I think the process should be different. We need to allow business people or corporate people to get into that same place. Otherwise, because if we work on plans, everyone gets defensive. So once you have a diagram, it's just a sketchy thing. And then I look at it, it's like, this diagram, it's not you guys are excellent, but this diagram is a bit lacking. Something's missing there. Something's not right. And then it says, oh yeah, we forgot that, and we forgot that, and forgot that. And immediately, new ideas come into the picture. Okay? And then you say, okay, now, once we've mapped the motivations, all right, and the actions, and the prerequisites, we can go and actually build the gap diagram. And the gap diagram shows very, very clearly what needs to be done. And once those things are in order, it helps us ask very, very simple questions. First of all, do we have a scheme? I mean, this is something that every designer asks, like, do I have a scheme? Basically ask themselves, do I have a perception of what I'm doing? Do I have confidence in that scheme? Is this diagram serving me? Does it show me the right way? Did I validate that? So I can show it to my colleagues and I can ask them about that. Based on, these assumptions, can I anticipate my resource availability? All right? And of course, if everything is fine and I followed my own design, did I make any success? Right? Did I make any achievement? And that's important because this is actual learning by doing process. And on the other hand, if something's wrong with that part, then I start asking myself, okay, what's missing? Am I missing several elements, in the design? Am I missing some clarity? I have the element. I mean, well, part of the problems I think with design thinking is that it turned into this really nice flow. This is empathize, ideate, research, blah. So I can emphasize in 70 million ways, and I can do research in according to 100 frameworks. And when it puts in front of creative people who are have access to the internet, each one will get their own perspective on how to do things. So do I have clarity? Now, I got the elements, I got the clarity. Do I get adoption? Because innovation is all about adoption. Okay? That's the only thing in innovation, to my opinion, is we need to, put people in a situation or organization situations where they adopt ideas, when they adopt workflows, when they adopt new products, new services. We need to adopt things. And then, of course, we need all these things. We have all these things, and nothing is realized. That means there's a lot of knowledge missing. So this gap diagram is really, really powerful in closing the strategy execution gap and also the imagination realization gap. It forces us to invest a lot of attention without the need to invest a lot of time and money into thinking about what we're doing. And then, of course, once we have those diagrams, we can start looking at, how do we actually solve, the problems. Because designers are always about discontent, and it was mentioned today. So dissatisfaction is an inherent part of design, okay? All the design I know started with some sort of dissatisfaction. Otherwise, everything would be the same as it was. So, but once, I have this dissatisfaction, and I spent a lot of time, both in, startups and also in design schools, we have this thing that's something's bugging, but I don't know exactly why or what. And we need to understand that so we can start, in any way. Is someone bugging you? Okay? Is it me? Is it my advisors? Is it my customers? Are those my stakeholders? And then what's the nature of this, discomfort? Is it because something's wrong or something's right? Is something missing? Is something exceeding? And then I can go to the cause and says, what is that? Is it knowledge? Is it a certain partner that I need in the process? Is it the reality that I'm operating in that's totally missing from, my design? Or are there some resources? I can do the other thing from that side over. Okay, I don't have a partner. Or I don't have some resources. Why? Okay? Is it because something's exceeding or something's missing? Okay? Who do I turn to? Do I turn to my advisors? Do I turn to my customers? So I can easily navigate along these questions and really start finding those missing things to be done. And I think, and I think those missing things to be done, if they're found quickly, they help us kind of slide through the wicked problems. And those wicked problems don't become, these kind of innovation detergents or like traumas, okay? So I've been operating with this framework for quite a while, and it's always exciting to see how quickly you can find a problem. For example, one large government organization actually who wants to build a special innovation program, but is stuck with it for quite a while, and they're doing this amazing research, and they're doing really, really great job at building up this program, but it doesn't work. And apparently what was missing was there was some sort of decision-making process that was missing. That was lacking in the process. And without it, no decision was able to be made on this amazing program that they've developed. So that was a really, really small thing. Just had to put this program aside for like a few weeks, think of the decision-making process, and then the process immediately moved on. So yeah, I have other examples, but I don't have much time, more time. Yeah, it's a good way to get a feeling, okay? It's a good way to communicate. We are used to like having, okay, can you make me a one-pager, and then we get like a one-pager full of buzzwords, or can we do like thinking sessions, and again we get like a 30-minute speech, highly associative, and then as also, you know, as an advisor, it's impossible. It's just like, how can you navigate? This sort of diagrams reveal, dude, you have a mess. And of course, reiterate, because the diagram, you need to reiterate on the diagram. So if you invest a lot of money and time in the diagram, you'll not repeat that. You'll just do it once, and it'll become like a, you know, like a piece of art. But if you do a sketchy diagram, it's quite comfortable to reiterate on it. So that's the things to be done methodology. I'll be around for the next 2 days. I'll be happy if you have questions about it and want to continue exploring it. That's me. Thank you.